Sometimes the most powerful stories begin not with a shout, but with silence. This is one of those stories. Picture this: a local shooting range, early morning. The kind of place where weekend warriors come to blow off steam and young recruits practice their skills. Now, imagine an old man in the corner, flannel shirt, worn jeans, a baseball cap with no insignia. Most people wouldn't look twice. They should have. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he arrived at 6:45 a.m. sharp, 15 minutes before opening. The staff knew him simply as Martin, last name only, written in a slow, deliberate scrawl on the sign-in sheet. No rank, no small talk, just a quiet nod, and those same worn boots walking to Lane 7. Always Lane 7. The regulars called him Pops, behind his back. They figured he was just another retired trucker with a pension and too much time. After all, he only brought 30 rounds, shot for exactly 20 minutes, and left without picking up his brass. What they didn't notice was the way that particular morning, a group of young Navy SEAL trainees had come in, off-duty, full of energy, full of confidence. One of them, let's call him Jake, set up 2 lanes over from Martin. At first, Jake wasn't paying attention. Just another civilian, right? But then he heard it, not the sound of the shots, the rhythm. 3 shots, pause, 2 shots, pause, all tight, all deliberate, no wasted motion. Jake glanced sideways. The old man's grip was textbook perfect. His stance, pure. He wasn't reacting to the gun. He was controlling it. That's when Jake caught a glimpse of something on Martin's forearm as he reloaded. A tattoo, faded, sun-worn, but unmistakable to someone who knew what to look for. Not a skull, not a flag, not some barroom ink. A number, 2 digits and an insignia that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. First, Recon Marine Force Reconnaissance. Jake waited, watching Martin's grouping get tighter with each shot. Then, curiosity overriding caution, he stepped closer. "Excuse me, sir," Jake said quietly. "That ink on your arm, that's First Recon, isn't it?" Martin didn't turn, didn't smile. He fired his final shot, set the pistol down slowly, and looked Jake in the eye. His answer came without emotion. Once. Just once. But Jake knew what it meant. Jake pressed gently. "When did you serve, sir?" 68 to 74, Martin replied. "Southeast Asia." The pieces fell into place. Vietnam era, deep reconnaissance, the kind of missions that didn't officially exist, where names didn't come home and files disappeared on purpose. "Laos?" Jake asked. Martin gave the slightest nod. "Among other places." By now, the other lanes had grown quiet. Not literally, guns were still firing, but the energy had shifted. The young SEALs had picked up on something. They were watching now, listening. When Martin finished his box of ammunition, 30 rounds, not one outside the inner circle, he began cleaning his weapon right there at the bench, calm, methodical, like he had all the time in the world. As he prepared to leave, Jake did something that surprised even himself. He snapped to attention. "Sir," Jake said clearly, "thank you for your service." Truly, Martin stopped, studied the young man for a moment, then walked back over. He placed something heavy in Jake's palm. A coin. Not decorative, not mass-produced. Real. It bore the First Recon insignia on one side and 2 words on the other. "Still here." Then Martin leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "You'll know when it's your time to go quiet. Until then, earn it." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He researched, dug through declassified archives, pieced together fragments of hidden history. Finally, Buried in a 1971 military log, he found it. Staff Sergeant Thomas Martin, 1st Recon, Laos. Extraction under fire. 7 recovered. Refused medevac. Wounded twice. Declined commendation. Recommendation buried. Note: asset considered irreplaceable. Now silent, silent. That was the code back then. You did the job. You didn't talk about it. You didn't write books or give interviews. You carried it quietly. Forever. And Martin had carried it all the way to that plastic bench at the range through decades of being just another old man in a flannel shirt. The next week, when Martin returned, everything was different. The young SEALs were waiting, respectful, attentive. They'd installed a small brass plate above Lane 7, reserved until he says otherwise. Martin never asked who put it there. He never told them to take it down. You see, some men teach with words, others teach through presence. Martin never told war stories, never raised his voice, never asked for recognition. But when one young warrior finally looked close enough to see the truth beneath his sleeve, the silence broke. That's the thing about real heroes. They don't advertise. They wait until someone is wise enough to notice how they move, how they stand, how they don't need to be seen to matter. So the next time you see someone standing quietly in the corner, an older person who moves with purpose, who carries themselves with quiet dignity, look closer, listen harder, because you might just be in the presence of history itself. And sometimes the most important stories are the ones that never get told until someone finally asks the right question. Remember their names. Honor their silence. Because heroes walk among us every day. We just have to be wise enough to recognize them.